Good day, I'm Andrea Mitchell in Washington. There are increasing U.S. efforts now to find the missing Nigerian girls. It's one thing that both parties in Washington have agreed upon, with all 20 women senators sending a letter to the president last week demanding more U.S. action. 11 of the 16 Democratic women senators took this picture on Monday, holding up a Bring Back Our Girls hashtag sign. It's become the rallying cry, of course, across the globe. Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow joins me now. Senator, thank you very much. You've demanded that the administration get the UN to designate Boko Haram as an international terror group. That would permit al-Qaeda-like sanctions. What more can be done, though? And what hasn't the administration done that it should be doing?
Well, Andrea, first of all, thank you for focusing on this. We know that the administration offered help immediately. It wasn't immediately accepted. It now has been, which is incredibly important. And as you said, the women of the Senate, and I'm very proud of the fact that on a bipartisan basis, we've really lifted this up with the early press reports coming with our letter to the president with a resolution that unanimously passed the Senate. Last night, we all met at the State Department with Secretary Kerry, and I will just say it was one of our dinners. I'm not going to go into specifics, but just to say this was a topic of a lot of discussion, and it was very, very clear that they are focused on doing whatever they can. Today we have a secure briefing this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we're going to keep the pressure on. As you know, there's been movement now for moving some of our troops into southern Italy to be in a better position, if needed, to be able to help with a rescue. And our message is very simple. This is absolutely intolerable, and we need to do whatever we can working with those around the world to bring these girls home and to focus on this as a long-term problem.
Now, I get that the Nigerian government has its own factions and wasn't either welcoming or accepting Western aid. It was very controversial. They were in denial. They didn't even want to acknowledge that this had happened at the highest levels, at the president's, good luck, Jonathan's wife. But at the same time, we have satellites. Why do we have all these satellites? They can be redirected anywhere in the world. And there's no indication to me that they were redirected to try to increase the overhead surveillance in a timely way until almost a month after this had taken place.
Well, I can tell you that everything is being done now. We're not clear. We'll know more this afternoon exactly when things began to happen, but I can tell you that it is all hands on deck now and has been for the last couple of weeks to be able to focus on this. It is very concerning that they have split the girls up now, so that as we look at moving forward and trying to rescue one group, we certainly don't want to put the other girls in jeopardy. So it's this is challenging, but incredibly important. And the entire world is looking at this in terms of our basic values as human beings, standing up for girls. Girls have the right to go to school, not to have to worry about being kidnapped and stolen as slaves, as sex slaves. And let me also underscore again, this is the moment, but it is not the only place it's happening, including the United States of America. We need to value our girls, and we need to make this a long-term focus.
And Senator, I know you are aware of this, but I just want to bring our viewers into this conversation. I'm hoping that you and Senator Feinstein and all the others, Senator Mikulski and all the other members of the Senate, Senator Collins on the Republican side, I'm hoping that you will take a closer look at what's happening in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, yes, but in Afghanistan as we withdraw our troops, because there are girls in Afghanistan and in Pakistan who are trying to go to school in the same way. Malala Yousafzai has brought attention to this. And as our American troops are withdrawing, they are really exposed. And the election is coming up in Afghanistan. We really need to hold people to the fire as this pressure against women's education continues globally.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is really about how our country, the world, the other countries, the radical factions that are trying to take over country after country value girls. And we know that the economy improves when girls and women are involved. I can tell you, as chair of the Agriculture Committee, it's the women that are going into farming, that are feeding families and communities, taking micro loans and turning them into businesses to support economic development. If we don't have educated girls, if we don't have women involved equally in the economy, we will not see the standard of living improve around the world.
Senator Debbie Stabenow, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And it is now exactly a month since those 276 girls were abducted. They were taken from their school violently in the middle of the night by the terror group Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. The U.S. has finally stepped up its assistance in the search after the Nigerians finally accepted the assistance, now adding an unmanned drone to a manned surveillance plane, probably a U-2, already scouring the country for any sign of the missing girls. Joining me now from neighboring Cameroon, right across the border, NBC's Stephanie Gosk. Stephanie, I know that there have been efforts in Cameroon as well. Is there any indication from the government there that some of these girls may have been taken across the border?
Officials here really bristle at the notion that they crossed the border, because the suggestion is that they either tacitly allowed that to happen or they turned a blind eye to it, and they insist that that has not happened. But you also have U.S. officials saying that these girls have been broken up into 3 groups, Andrea, but kept within the northeast part of Nigeria by the group Boko Haram. But for a little bit of perspective, the area that they're concerned about, where they're searching for them, is the size of New England. Andrea?
And it's also dense forest. It's really very difficult for, I guess, this unmanned drone that is now searching the Global Hawk is scouring the forest. But the question is, what are the chances that they are, a month later, going to find these girls? We did see the pictures, of course, of as many as, 100 in one group.
Well, Andrew, this tool, the Global Hawk, this unmanned, long-range, high-altitude drone could be very useful in this. Early on, U.S. officials said that the Nigerian government had not asked for drones, and one official told NBC News he was very concerned that they hadn't, because it's really one of the best tools they have. So the Global Hawk can be up in the air for 28 hours. It is nearly undetectable when it is up at its highest altitudes, and it uses certain tools like infrared. So if they're talking about this Sambisa forest, which you'll hear a lot of people suggest is where the girls might be, it's a reserve, a dense forest reserve, that infrared could come in very handy. And this Global Hawk, like I said, 28 hours, it can fly, has a range of 8,700 miles, so it can come certainly from Europe to do this task. Andrea?
Stephanie Gosk in Cameroon, neighboring Nigeria, and now to Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where Chief Global Correspondent Bill Neely has arrived. Bill, I understand that family members have screened the video of the girls, and they have identified a number of the girls who were taken by Boko Haram. What can you tell us?
Yeah, there was a screening last night in the state capital. Really very touching scenes as relatives and parents and indeed friends of the missing girls, and indeed some girls who themselves had escaped from the kidnapping, all watched this video. You can only imagine what was going through their minds. We saw girls walking up to the screen and pointing out various friends, a father pointing at his daughter, a mother wiping away her tears, and afterwards they described their feelings, which were a mixture, of course, of relief that their children were still alive, but anger and also bewilderment at the clothes that they were dressed in. There was a lot of people just saying, I almost didn't recognize my daughter, and indeed some people there who couldn't recognize their children because they're dressed in these hijabs with only a small amount of their faces showing. And of course there were probably in this video, which is purported to show the girls, there were only perhaps just over 100 girls. There are more than double that missing. So very, very touching scenes as those parents agonizingly after 4 weeks watched that video.
And Bill, what can you tell us about the government? Because there's a lot of criticism around the world about the government's resistance to accepting offers from the UK, from here, from France, from Italy, of any kind of military assistance or surveillance, intelligence even.
Yeah, there's no question, Andrea, they've been stung by criticism that they're not doing enough. It is a very defensive government, and today Nigeria's military spokesman was insisting that the Air Force have flown over 300 sorties. We saw the first pictures of the Nigerian army searching on the ground. That was almost offered as some kind of proof that they are hunting for the girls, but of course there's no way of judging what those pictures really show. Are they in the right place? Are these crack troops? Are they working on proper information? And as Stephanie Goss said, of course, this area is 25,000 to 40,000 square miles. It's absolutely huge. We're also seeing a government that's slightly trapped between their instinct to go after Boko Haram and their probably what they feel they should do is to talk to them. And the government is saying they are willing to talk, that all of their options are open. And the talk in this town, in the capital Abuja, is that back channels are now being established between the government and the Boko Haram group that got these girls, channels that have been there for a couple of years, and they're trying to edge towards possibly some kind of a deal. In other words, that Boko Haram prisoners, or at least their families who are in jail, might be freed in return for the freedom of some of the daughters. So that's the talk here, but of course all options, including a military one, remain open.
And we were talking to Michael Leiter about this in recent days, and he said that while they don't, quote, negotiate with terrorists, that there would be back-channel conversations and that this could be an ongoing process. Thank you very much, Bill Neely. Thanks for reporting from Abuja. And joining me now, California's Dianne Feinstein, chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which has been, of course, working on this. I know, Senator, that you've been talking to the State Department. We just talked to Senator Stabenow about the efforts, belated, some would say, because of Nigeria's resistance to accepting help. But one of the things that I did not understand was with satellite coverage, where we can redirect our satellites. You don't have to ask for Nigeria's acceptance and their agreement. You're not crossing any borders. Why didn't we have overhead surveillance sooner? This is only now being organized almost a month in.
I actually can't answer that. I think you're right, though, and I think this is one thing we need to prepare, that when you have to prepare that is so dominantly evil, is a terrorist group, and they do something like this. They've burned 200 schools, and they've now kidnapped nearly 300 of these young girls. It seems to me that we ought to be prepared and move. And we do a good deal of SIGINT, and
signals
I've got
intelligence,
to look,
electronic intelligence.
That's right. I've got to look a little bit more closely at when the SIGINT is done, and assuming that it is good SIGINT on a target, that action happens. I need to look more closely at this, so does the committee.
Do you think that, I know there's a lot you can't say about signals intelligence because it's classified, but we assume, certainly from a lot of the things that have been disclosed so far, that overhead surveillance is very, very accurate, that improvements in surveillance, not only from the Global Hawk drones, which we now know have been deployed, but also from the satellites, that we have technical means to penetrate this dense forest and look for these girls.
I'm not going to go into detail, but I would say that our technical means are improving day by day and year by year. There's no question about that. The question that I have is synchronizing what the technical means finds and what the proper action to take really is. And this is difficult.
The analysis
and the action, and under what premise would our nation put in a special forces unit to go in and carry out what is essentially a military activity, whether it's the recovery of these young girls or anything else. So, you know, we're in a different day and age. I think much more thought needs to be given to this. I think the women of the Senate are totally united, and this is a very, very big issue for women. How far are we prepared to go to save these girls, even if the head of government does not invite the nation our nation to do so?
It really calls into question whether the men in charge of our government, frankly, would have been responding more quickly, despite Goodluck Jonathan, the president of Nigeria's opposition, whether they would have been responding more rapidly if it hadn't been schoolgirls, if it had been some other premise.
You mean if it had been schoolboys? No,
well,
I don't think
some
that's
other military. I guess some other cause? Because it just seems that it took forever to mobilize the U.S. government, even against the opposition of the Nigerian government.
Well, I'm not going to speculate on that. I am to say that I think this kind of thing opens up a whole new venue for America's technical means of seeing from the sky. And then when you see what you do, if it's a terrorist training camp, what you do, how quickly you do it. If it's a targeted individual, what you do, how quickly you do it, because this all takes time, it takes patience, and the CIA has become very good at this from the air, but in this kind of instance, it took weeks, and we even had the president of Nigeria's wife saying, this isn't true. This didn't happen. They're doing it to embarrass my husband. And of course, it was very much true. And Nigeria has been very reluctant to take action, which I find very surprising.
Surprising and upsetting, frankly.
That's
Senator,
right.
thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Thank you.